This may hopefully spark some thoughts about how important a specific brand value, that is a number, a financial number, is to the whole marketing ecosystem. From the job that you do to the debates that happen about budgeting to everything else, we think that this is a pretty big driver. ISO is the International Organization for Standardization. There is also an organization which reports up to them called ANSI, which is the American National Standards Institute. And we are essentially the designee by ANSI, so we're the accredited representative on this whole subject of brand valuation and brand evaluation. If you're familiar with ISO and you talk to colleagues of yours that may be in science or engineering, ISO is God, all right? ISO says this is the standard, that's the standard. So the whole notion that you could come up with such a standard in the marketing world was kind of crazy when it was first suggested. But we worked very well with this technical committee. We have a standard for brand evaluation and valuation that has been passed on a global basis. And we're now in the process of rolling that out and trying to have people like yourselves understand it and perhaps talk about it and have your organizations talk about it. Now, we would firmly commit to the fact that this is a meta standard, so that there's work going on even more fully right now to talk about specific applications of this and what's the guidance that we'll give in terms of how to apply it. But I draw your attention to this part of the conversation. It was kind of interesting for me today to hear the discussion about what's being measured along the way. And the thing that was kind of surprising, we talked about brand health a little bit, but there's not a whole lot of question and discussion about brand strength, right? And at the end of the day, there are different models out there for calculating the value of a brand, but different measures of brand strength, different companies have different names for it. That's really what the driver of brand valuation is. Now, people would say, wow, you're going to try to put a number on this? You're going to stand by that number? I've opened the newspaper and I've seen all of these articles about brand X went up and brand Y went down in brand value. And I don't buy any of that stuff. Or maybe I brought some people in and I talked to them about what they do, and I thought that was all poppycock. Well, unfortunately, the brand valuation companies have found that clickbait works for them as sales tools just like it works for everybody else. So they can throw out a list there based on publicly available data, which they would all admit is rather thin. And there's a lot of problems with those lists that they put out, but they generate an awful lot of attention and put their name out there, and they can get millions and millions of impressions. And they find those impressions to be valuable because they push people down the sales funnel. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't kind of validate the importance of brand value in the whole conversation that might happen within a company. So what is this standard? What does it require? Well, the real interesting thing is that it requires annual evaluation and valuation of brands. The financial people in general would say, marketing is an expense that I want to reduce. I want to minimize it. I would say to you that in our experience, the conversation about marketing becomes a lot different when you say, I have these brands that are assets and they're worth this much money, and you really don't want me to invest in that brand in terms of protecting it and growing it. The conversation becomes very, very different. If you talk to I would say enlightened, perhaps because I agree with their point of view, enlightened CFOs about that, they would all say to you that the brand is actually the biggest driver of value over the long term if you have a brand or number of brands that are consumer facing.